That which is has already been, and what is to be has already been, and God requires an account of what is past. Ecclesiastes 3:15. You know, if you could pick one of the wildest topics in science fiction, it would surely be one of the alternate dimensions and virtual worlds. With programs like Sliders and The Matrix, the imagination is trivially stimulated. But hey, it's only fiction, right? What if I could show you that in the Bible tells us that Jesus alluded to the very fact that this mortal life, our linear existence, is actually an altered dimension, separated from the eternal one, yet existing at the same time? Sounds kind of weird. Consider just what the scripture that I just quoted says. Our past and our future have already been done, and God requires an account of what is past. The implication is that to God, everything is already past history, and He requires an account for it all. It is not that God is sitting up in eternity and has a plan all figured out and knows what He's going to do. It's already been done. You can't hedge around this one. Clearly, by that statement alone, heaven, God's dwelling place, a place of eternity, is outside of time. The outcome of everything is already history from God's perspective. That is why we have this supernatural book called the Bible, which actually holds the entire recorded history of mankind from beginning to end. The Bible is not just a collection of stories, poems, and accounts of isolated incidents between man and God and Satan, locked in some kind of struggle for freedom or victory. The Bible literally means the book. Not a book, but the book. On the contrary, every book, story, and poem in the Bible is interconnected to explain one story. This is a story of a creation altered and separated from God's original intended condition by a rebel who tried to create for himself his own universe. It is the complete story from start to finish of this distortion of time and space, resulting in the creation of a paradox universe. God's creation then being trapped in an alternate existence and in need of rescue. It is the account of an all-loving God for His creation, who restored and repaired this alternate linear dimension by making the ultimate sacrifice Himself. In the form of His only begotten Son, God became man to restore first spiritually, then physically, all of creation, and to put an end to the rebel and his followers, both angelic and human. To understand the concept of eternal versus linear, our concept of time can be the biggest problem. It is hard for us to realize the concept of eternity being trapped in a linear existence. We only experience the present and remember the past and speculate the future. God, who dwells outside of time, sees and experiences it all at one time. Imagine standing on a street corner watching a parade go by. One by one you see the various floats and bands pass by until the end. Someone high above in a helicopter would be able to see the entire parade as one single event. At least in perception, the same can be said of heaven and earth, linear or eternal existence. Though God lives in the completed eternal state of everything accomplished according to His will, He has access to the linear state in a parallel to His state at any time at any point. Going back to our illustration, not only can you observe the entire parade being up above, but you also have the ability to enter into that parade at any given point or time that you choose, as you see and view everything as one single event. Heaven and earth, eternity, linear, are coexistence and yet very different, and the Bible describes both further. The eternal dimension, there's many descriptions mentioned in the Bible that give us a glimpse of what eternity can be like. First off, in Isaiah 57:15, the word says, "For thus saith the high and lofty one that inhabits eternity, whose name is holy. I will dwell in the high and holy place with him that is of a contrite and humble spirit." This scripture depicts the nature of God being in harmony with the abode of God, eternity. From the understanding of the Hebrew language, we get a good description of and a glimpse of what eternity is like. God is described as being the high and lofty one. He is actively raised, one in all applications of the word raised, as in a higher level, but He is also the Nasa, or the one lifted up, as in resurrected. His name is holy, or to be clean, by eminence, sacred, apart from imperfection or sin, which is missing the mark. He dwells in this high and holy place, an elevated place, a place of perfection without sin. Also, again, meaning to not miss the mark, a deviation of the intended objective. Eternity is like a circle outside of time. The high and holy place is called eternity from the Hebrew word adah, to advance, pass on, or continue. Strong's definition makes the point, let's get this one, a preemptory terminus, by implication, duration, in the sense of an advanced perpetuity. Now, I have to confess I had to look at my Webster's to understand what Strong was saying and putting it into simple English. To simplify, it is putting an end or precluding a right of action, a final absolute final goal or boundary, either end of a transportation line or travel route. The final state is being perpetual without end or beginning. In this sense, what is being described is taking a line from the beginning point and the ending and wrapping it together at the ends to form a circle. No beginning or ending, but continuous. This is an act stated in the above scripture context exclusively the right of God for the price he paid. The Bible actually describes this as eternity and perhaps the actual means to accomplish this eternal state. Jesus, just before God was to reveal closing events to the Apostle John, Jesus reaffirmed this idea when he said, I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, saith the Lord, which is, which was, and which is yet to come, the Almighty, recorded in Revelations 1:8. Jesus said to John that he was the arche, or the telos, the first estate, corner, or beginning of time, and the conclusion of, as in a levy paid, of a definite point or goal. He then concluded by saying he was the Almighty, or in the Greek, Pantakoretio, one holding all authority over everything, including both dimensions. Before the prophet Daniel revealed to Nebuchadnezzar his dream, as God revealed it to him, he made this inspired statement, How great are his signs, and how mighty are his wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and his dominion is from generation to generation. Daniel 4:3. In the Aramaic, Daniel describes the kingdom as everlasting, or alam, a remote time, future or past, indefinitely, forever. Alam corresponds with olam, being veiled from sight, concealed from the vanishing point. Giving it this flavor to the word, from generation to generation, is imdar, which is to say, associated by huddling together, a revolution of time and age, a dwelling. It is from the root from dwar, meaning to gyrate, to move in a circle, or to remain to dwell. Again, the etymology of these words, we get the idea of a forming of a circle as a state of eternity. In the New Testament, Jesus is described as, according to the work whereby he is able to even subdue all things unto himself, Philippians 3:21. This gathering to form a circle includes only what was intended to be created. Everything that was mixed up or incomplete will be made right according to his will and purpose. The next text of Scripture includes this idea. We have to understand the eternal realm is totally exclusive to God. In Ecclesiastes 3:11, he has made everything beautiful in his time. Also, he has set the world in their heart, so that no man can find out the work that God makes from the beginning to the end. In this text, he hath made everything beautiful in his time, is describing a promise that everything in his linear temporal time will be made right in his own time. The word used for times is eth, from the Hebrew root ad. This would indicate that the suitable time is apart from the linear realm and one of completion in God's eternal realm. This next verse clarifies this idea, describing man's position as being apart and incomprehensible in man's own reasoning from God's eternal dimension. Vine's notes on Strong's numbers puts it best. In Ecclesiastes 3:11, we read that God had bound man to time and given him the capacity to live above time. In other words, he could remember yesterday, plan for tomorrow, and consider abstract principles, yet he has not given him divine knowledge. Divine knowledge of eternal things would only be imparted to fallen man as he needed it or as he is conformed into God's likeness. It is not that God is afraid of man competing with him or enjoying some kind of role as master. It is for our own safety and care that he prevents us from knowledge that we would abuse and harm ourselves with. He would not give a child a loaded gun to play with, even with proper instruction. He would only abuse or misuse it by the very nature that he is only a child lacking wisdom. The same immaturity exists with fallen man. We have a nature in this linear existence that would only abuse the knowledge and power of heaven. We lack wisdom to understand the whole picture from God's perspective, limited by our own linear existence and the limitations natural to it. To usurp this is to become a rebel and a spoiled child demanding to play with a loaded gun. We thereby have been limited in our access and understanding of certain knowledge only for our protection. Our trust then is not to cross certain boundaries of concealed knowledge, or what is today called occult knowledge, and rely upon sufficient grace through God's revealed means. In doing this, we are promised an abundant life, able to sustain us and keep us through for the short time we are here in this distortion of a dimension we call mortal life. These scriptures backed up the principles is in John 10:10, Jude 1:24-25, Psalms 55:22, and Philippians 4:19.